The house on Hampstead Hill. A ghostly encounter. I never believed in ghosts until that fateful night. As an estate agent working in central London, I often had to visit old, empty properties. Most had strange creaks and cryptic drafts that I easily dismissed. But this house in Hampstead was different. The owner had recently passed away with no heirs, so the property was slated to be sold. My job was simply to assess its value. Arriving around dusk, the 3-story Victorian home certainly looked deserted, a faded "for sale" sign hanging by one nail on the rusted gate. As I walked up the overgrown path to the imposing front door, a cold breeze rustled the dead leaves around my feet. I shuddered before unlocking the door. Inside, each room was still fully furnished, as if frozen in time. Thick layers of dust covered every surface, and strange shadows stretched across the peeling flowery wallpaper. My footsteps echoed as I inspected the rooms with my flashlight. The deeper I explored, the heavier the air felt. At one point I swore I heard faint whispering right behind me. Spinning around quickly, I saw nothing but gloomy hallways full of spiders and dust. I kept checking my watch, eager to finish up and leave this place behind forever. The final room was a dark study lined with overflowing bookshelves, smelling strongly of mold and aged leather. Strangely, the window was wide open, the lace curtains fluttering violently in the wind. As I moved to close it, a loose sheet of paper blew off the desk, fluttering past me. I managed to catch it mid-air, and that's when I saw the message scrawled in what looked like red ink. "Get out." My stomach dropped. This had to be some kind of sick prank. Suddenly, the heavy wooden door to the study slammed shut behind me, the bang echoing all around. I grabbed the brass handle, pulling with all my might, but it wouldn't budge. My flashlight began to flicker wildly. Then, all the lights went out, leaving me alone in complete darkness. As terror gripped my chest, a raspy voice whispered from the shadows. "You shouldn't have come here." I pounded on the door frantically, yelling for help. But my cries were met only by a hideous cackle swirling in the blackness around me. The air grew icy cold. Out of the gloom, a pale apparition slowly materialized. It was a gaunt, elderly man with hollow eyes. Floating toward me, arms outstretched, he unleashed an unearthly shriek. The walls began bleeding dark red liquid. Nearly paralyzed with fear, I scrambled to open any door or window for escape. But all exits remained firmly sealed by some unseen force. The ghostly man's skeletal fingers clutched my throat as he howled in my face. Desperate, I grabbed a heavy book off a shelf and swung at the phantom. My weapon went clean through his translucent form, which flickered briefly before continuing to advance. Suddenly, I spotted my flashlight still flickering sporadically on the floor. I grabbed it and shone the beam all around me like a sword of light, praying earnestly out loud. As quickly as it began, the chaos stopped. The wraith blinked out of existence. The bleeding walls turned dry again, and the iron grip at my throat released. In the flash pointing downward, I noticed an antique iron key on a blood-stained rug. Before I could investigate further, the locked door creaked open behind me. Wasting no time, I burst out of that hellish study and hurtled down the stairs into the night air. I sprinted away without looking back, finally allowing myself to catch my breath under a streetlight 2 blocks away. Pulling out my phone, I saw 27 missed calls from the office. As I swiped aside alerts about the open window, bleeding walls, and ghostly attack that I knew no one would believe, my heart nearly stopped once more. Scrolling back several hours on the call log, I noticed a 3-minute call logged while I was alone, locked inside that study. Hands shaking, I listened to a voicemail from an unknown number. Amidst the static, that same gravelly voice whispered, "You escaped this time, but what about next time?" Over the next week, I didn't go back to the office. Incessant visions of those hollow ghost eyes plagued my dreams each night. I started seeing that gaunt silhouette reflected behind me in windows as I walked home. Passing strangers would sometimes shout violent threats that no one else seemed to hear. My doctor couldn't find anything physically wrong, so recommended I take stress leave. But the phantom phone calls continued addressing me by name in a growl saying, "It's not over." I decided to do some digging on the property's history, hoping to make sense of what happened. The original owner had been an elderly recluse named August Goodwin. Sorting through articles in the local library archives, I discovered that August was suspected in the disappearance of several neighborhood children back in the 1950s. But he died before police could find any solid evidence. The disappearances remained unsolved cold cases. The bodies never recovered. However, townspeople accused August's malicious spirit of forever lurking on the premises thereafter. I sank into my hands, realizing this was no hallucination. I had awoken a vengeful ghost, hell-bent on revenge against me for disturbing his lair. That evening, my cell phone buzzed from an unfamiliar number again. Hesitantly, I answered the call. Through crackling interference, I heard the spine-chilling voice declare, "August Goodwin sends his regards." I smashed my phone against the wall in fright. What did this evil entity want from me? Feeling utterly helpless, I decided to reach out to the only person I could still trust, my friend Raj, who ran a magic and occult bookshop. Raj listened intently to my story with expert fascination. As I pored over images of ritual symbols from one of his archaic books, a passage on banishing spells caught my eye. Raj explained that ghosts often remain tethered to a cursed object near where they died. If we removed and purified the cursed object from the deceased's property, that would sever their access point to the living world for good. The prospect of confronting August Goodwin's spirit again made my skin crawl, but Raj convinced me this could work, and I knew I couldn't run from the haunting forever. We picked up sage, holy water, an iron crucifix, and several candles to bolster the cleansing ritual. If those proved ineffective, Raj's book also described drawing a protective blood pentagram. When we arrived at the abandoned house once more, I hesitated at the gate, recalling the unspeakable horrors within those walls just days before. Raj placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder and reminded me it wasn't the house itself that was haunted. It held merely the secret to setting a tortured soul free. As we entered cautiously, I felt encouraged that daylight now streamed through the windows, casting the rooms in a calmer ambience. We moved carefully from room to room, saging each corner thoroughly, murmuring prayers and blessings as we went. The last stop was the dreaded study. My heart pounded as we entered, but all remained silent. As Raj scoured the dusty books and cabinets, I kept alert for any sudden drops in temperature or movement. When I glanced down at the exact spot where I discovered that key after my violent encounter, nothing lay on the rug anymore. I called Raj over. Perhaps the iron key itself was August's cursed attachment. Raj agreed we needed to find and remove that key from the premises immediately in order to sever the ghost's connection. No floorboards or furniture concealed the key. In my swelling panic of being trapped in August's lair once more, I suddenly recalled the streaked bloodstain on the rug from my first visit. On instinct, I rolled up the worn Persian rug to unveil a loose floorboard with an antique lockbox concealed underneath. The iron skeleton key lay inside atop a collection of small child-sized shoes and bones. Fighting the urge to vomit, we said a solemn prayer for the poor souls of August's victims, finding such a grave beneath the floor of this madman's lair for over 60 years. I grabbed the key and we raced to exit the property. Once a safe distance, Raj performed a thorough cleanse ritual on the key over a fire invoking spiritual protection until that last relic melted away for good. No more could August Goodwin's twisted soul pass through its vessel into the mortal world. As the embers smouldered out, I felt the cold grasp around my psyche release at long last. Over the next few days, the nightmares faded along with sightings of the gaunt silhouette. After weeks, I returned cautiously to work, feeling more at peace. Life seemed to resume as normal until one otherwise quiet evening there was a firm knocking sound at my front door. I froze in place, praying the protective charms Raj gifted me would hold. The knocks continued more insistent. Shaking off grim memories flooding back, I crept slowly to the door, holding my breath. I nearly collapsed in relief, when instead I saw my smiling colleague through the peephole. She wanted to personally deliver an urgent client file for a new listing she said I would find intriguing. At the original estate, police swarmed the premises over reports of skeletal remains unearthed on the property. An investigation took place revealing a serial killer that escaped justice for decades. The case was bigger than first thought as they uncovered many lives taken. The children are now at rest, and so am I.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, comment and share. Come back often for more ghostly paranormal tales. Some are based on real sightings, and some are just short stories. Either way, I hope you enjoy. Don't have nightmares.